As we near the end of the year, we inch closer and closer to the 2028 Jeep Wrangler release. The next generation Jeep Wrangler has been officially discussed, and we're going to be unpacking historically what AMC, Jeep, Chrysler bring to the table, and potentially what that future generation of Wrangler, the J70, looks like for you. My name is Neil with SFJ4x4.com, Simpson Family Jeeps. Today's subject matter is one that I am completely and absolutely thrilled to discuss with you. It is important to note that it is entirely subjective. It is based on fact and experience, but the reality of what Stellantis actually produces in a couple years from now is going to be totally up in the clouds as far as I'm concerned, because quite frankly, they've told us crazy things and then did them differently than what they said they were going to be. And as automotive enthusiasts, we kind of roll with the punches. With that said, we are going to be talking about how historically we can predict what is going to be produced. And additionally, we can kind of utilize some factual documents, specifically the 2023 UAW contract negotiation documents, as a springboard for what has been agreed upon between the corporate entity Stellantis and the union workers who are to be building the vehicles in the very near future. While I realize the highly speculative nature of this, there are a few things that we absolutely know to be true. The new generation of Wrangler will be called the J70, and we should look for it to be in production by 2028. As we look forward to what this Wrangler might be, I think it's valuable to think about where the brand has come from and what history tells us when Jeep Chrysler reinvents itself roughly every 10 years of the Wrangler platform. Now, it is important to note that there have been some massive changes to specifically Stellantis's product offering, with the Jeep Recon finally being unveiled at the 2025 LA Auto Show. This actually marks a huge milestone because they've been teasing us with this platform since 2024. Its release in 2025, or kind of at the end of it for a 2026 model, I think is a valuable indicator about what might happen with the Wrangler platform. Because in that UAW agreement, Stellantis specifically said that we will see a fully electrified Wrangler platform in a BEV model, or battery electric vehicle, a hybrid electric model in the REPB, or range extender paradigm breaker. I'm not making that phrase up. That's literally what they call it. And ultimately, an upgraded internal combustion 3.6 engine. While the UAW Stellantis 2023 hourly employee agreement doesn't explicitly unpack what this model will look like, discerning experts within the industry can agree that we are going to see a substantial power plant redesign. Whether or not the exterior will change either on a monumental or a micro level is really kind of arbitrary to what we exactly know. Now, I think it's important to note that this particular agreement does not, in fact, address the Jeep JT Gladiator past 2027. So it offers up this question: what will happen to the Gladiator post-platform change of the Wrangler? But realistically, that's not what this video is about. It's specifically for those Wrangler enthusiasts and understanding what that next generation might look like. Will it be a hybrid electric commuter car, or will it be the most capable Wrangler yet. I think history will reveal a little more about what the future might hold, but equally important is what's happening right here and now in the present. And kind of as we mash all that together, it starts to make a clear as mud picture about that next generation. So if you will, travel with me in the Wayback Machine back to 1986 as AMC is arguably bankrupting and falling apart. Chrysler swoops in to save the day and ultimately release the Yuppie Jeep in 1987. Now, this particular variation, deemed the YJ Wrangler, was a small yet large deviation from that prior iconic CJ platform. What that YJ Wrangler did was attempt to improve upon all of the handling characteristics of the CJ, offer that similar doorless, topless experience, but ultimately throw a sizable middle finger up at the establishment and change with the times to square headlights. The YJ Wrangler dripped 1980s and early 90s in its color palette and its general styling. Additionally, it was a complete and absolute fabricated mishmash of parts that really showed off this kind of globalization, sourcing of parts from Europe, and kind of a coming together of corporate entities from across the world. We saw products installed on the YJ Wrangler that arguably were test bedded in the mid 80s, but really hit the ground running by 87, where we saw an assortment of brands, both foreign and domestic, come together in this conglomeration of kind of an ugly duckling platform. Now, it's important to note that this is not super long-lived, and just as that iconic CJ5, 6, 7 platform existed in a relative similarity from 76 to 86, a finite 10-year time stamp, as does the YJ existing from 87 to roughly 95. It's killed because of federal regulatory concerns and OBD2 retrofitting issues. That's yet another conversation, but no model in 96, but a re-release of the Wrangler in 97. Now, if you were to go back in time and see little Neil playing on the floor with his Legos and listening to the TV and reading the Peterson magazines, you will know that I wept hysterically when we were told in 95 that there would be no Wrangler in 96. Little Neil did not have a good understanding for how the kind of corporate entity appeasing of the government conversation would go, and the fact that the 95 Wrangler would largely be produced through 96 as a 95 model. And then halfway through 96, the 97s would hit the lot as well. But then truly, as some people are concerned, the greatest Jeep ever built, the TJ Wrangler, is released in 97. It runs through 2006, the TJ Wrangler and LJ Wrangler. In 2007, we see the JK produced, and it runs through 2018 and a half. A slightly longer production run than its predecessors, but the JL Wrangler comes out in 2018 and a half as well, and it runs theoretically through 2028, where we will see the J70. Where they get the namesake or the little indicator of J70, we do not know. It kind of deviates from the two-letter insignia that has kind of been critical or crucial to the Jeep brand. As we get closer, they might give it a two-letter insignia. For now, we know it as the J70. Here's the hot take. all of those models, as I talk about the 10-year crossover, 87, 97, 2007, and 2018, as far as the Wrangler platform is concerned, is a steamy, hot pile of garbage. So needless to say, one of the critical talking points that we share with people is to avoid first-year production models. In that first year, you are kind of against your will the beta test group of the original equipment manufacturer, the mothership, if you will, as they put forth their product that might not be fully real world vetted. Yes, the engineers have done their best and they've done all the testing and the federal regulatory checks and balances, but that doesn't mean that the everyday kind of outlying instances have been thoroughly vetted against that model. And so one of the big takeaways that I can tell you is this first iteration of the J70 is going to be tough, because it's been tough with every single transition of model change that we've seen going back 40 years. And this is not to say that it has anything to do with whoever's the ownership or how they're being built or where they're being built. It just has to do with people have this great idea and they seek to build something, and then it's actually put to real world practical use. And we kind of see where its Achilles heel is, and we improve upon it as an industry. At least that's what we're supposed to do. Now, where we do see challenges are when the manufacturer attempts to compromise or fulfill regulatory or incentive-based actions by our federal government. We oftentimes see this kind of tug of war between products that are conceptualized on the vehicles and then the products that are actually finally installed. One of the things that we have recently seen are massive recalls within the plug-in hybrid 4xe Wrangler platforms. This is an ongoing issue, and as a fan of all things that are motor and tire oriented, I like electrification. I think there's some misnomers out there about the process, and people feel that it's pushed upon them. I, for one, don't think anybody has ever forced me to own an electric vehicle. That's kind of why I still don't own an electric vehicle. But I think they're cool in concept, and they're cool in the same way that I like propane engines and diesel trucks and big gas engines and small gas engines. I like things with motors and wheels. And so I welcome electrification to the automotive community as part of a portfolio, not as a singular option. With that said, I recognize where Stellantis attempted to create a stepping stone in the 4xe Wrangler platform. Now, my own personal speculation is the fact that they attempted to retrofit electrification into a platform that was not purpose-built. Enter the Recon. The Recon that has been teased for years and is theoretically in production for 2026 is a fully electrified, small body, off-road machine. Now, take that as you will. It's yet to actually hit the ground running, and LA Auto Show unveiling was underwhelming. From seemingly cheap plastics to oddities with door openings, the Recon has left a little bit to be desired from what they told us it would originally be, this rugged, compact Wrangler platform, fully electrified. It has a small range by industry standards, and it is clearly untested in real-world application. So we'll yet to see what that holds for us. Now, while that UAW agreement talks about a BEV or battery electric Wrangler production and a REPB range extender paradigm breaker hybrid vehicle, I think that the release of the Recon is strategic in the fact that it's going to carry the flag of electrification into battle, while the Wrangler gets to refine our current platform as we know it with some more purpose-built drivetrain options. Now, it's important to note that I'm going to take the BEV and I'm going to kind of put it over here because I think that that's what the Recon is doing for us. Despite the fact that it's in the agreement, I'm going to say that that might be a game time shift for Stellantis. The REPB, again, range extender paradigm breaker, is a technology that we've seen teased in the 2026 1500 Ramcharger. Now, it is important to note that that appears to have been delayed again, but an oversimplification of the technology is basically to think about how trains work. You have an internal combustion engine that drives an electrified motor. I personally love this idea. And first and foremost, I would like to see us do it with a compact diesel, but that's me just shouting over here into the abyss. Totally different soapbox that I would love to jump on. But in this specific scenario, it was intended to be the known 3.6 Pentastar engine driving a forward and rearward electrified motors at each axle. It's cool in concept, but again, not vetted in real world application. Additionally, much like the Recon, it's a big idea and it's been placed on the back burner and kind of pushed out yet again. However, in those negotiations, they did say that by 2028, 2029, we should see this technology shoehorned into the Wrangler platform as we know it. Now, finally, they also note in those negotiations that there would be a redesigned 3.6 engine as well. As I go in that Wayback Machine, I think it's valuable to convey to you that the 3.6 engine that we saw released under the JK platform is not the 3.6 engine that we see in the JL. While they both have the exact same namesake, they are vastly different in operation. With that said, the likelihood is the new generation of 3.6 will yet be another engine despite having the exact same name. I suspect that these negotiations between employer and employee did include the battery electric Jeep and the range extender paradigm breaker in addition to the traditional internal combustion engine, so that Stellantis had all of the chips on the table and they can pull some of them back as they get a little bit closer to the actual production date. Not included in those negotiations is a 392 option in a Jeep Wrangler. Now, we know what was happening in the broader market in 2023, and hindsight being 2020, we see a cease production on Mopar V8s. However, Jeep Chrysler Stellantis is recoiling from dismal market share loss over the last 2 or 3 years, and they've had some major turnover in executive leadership, and currently we're seeing them being incredibly responsive to the needs of the niche enthusiast market. And across the board, they're trying to get back to their roots of rugged individualism that is the Mopar brand in itself. Specifically, they've turned the lights back on and fired up the assembly line at the V8 plant and are intending to have V8 Wranglers. They are offering it again, right? Wranglers, currently JL Wranglers. Right. I agree with you. It felt like the plant never shut down. I think it did, but I think it was like, okay, everybody go home. Okay, everybody come back. And they started building V8 Wranglers again. That's what it feels like, but I don't actually know what happened there. But they're going to be making V8 Wranglers in current times, I think.
We'll also be adding bigger powertrains, more ICE variants, and bigger, more capability with bigger tires and more fun. That means more domination of any obstacle that stands in the way. After being out at the Rubicon Trail, it's clear just how much people love the roar of the 392. With all that love, how could we 86 the V8? Jeep fans, don't worry. The 6.4-liter Hemi V8 will have it home at Jeep.
I think it's fair to say that sometimes I find myself as an outlier, and people really want to know about some of the more kitschy accoutrements of the models than my own personal interest takes me. Now, there has not been a lot of conversation regarding a redesign of the body or other little Easter eggs or accessories that might be unique to the J70 release. However, we're again going to use that Wayback Machine while having a foot firmly planted in the present to kind of help us understand what some of those things might be in this new model. We've been told for 30 plus years that our Wrangler platform was going to get at minimum independent front suspension and potentially become a unibody construction, meaning it would not have a full frame on chassis any longer. However, just as each iteration and passing era of Wrangler has come and gone, we have managed to retain our frames and our solid live axles front and rear. Because of this cat and mouse game with the corporate holding company that's owned the Wrangler platform, I'm a little numb to their declarations of IFS and IRS and unibody and so on and so forth. And realistically, despite the fact that you don't want that to be the case, I believe that the Recon is the hero you didn't know you needed. I say this with a matter of proclamation. The J70 will likely still have solid axles front and rear, a full frame construction, and will likely retain the coil spring suspension that we've known and loved since 1997. I say this with my full chest because I understand that sometimes these corporate entities need to say one thing out into the world to kind of lay the appropriate stepping stones for future production and to check the right boxes for, whatever pseudo business and political games they need to play. But at the end of the day, they're about selling product that matters to the market. It's kind of basic capitalism as far as I'm concerned. And realistically, Wrangler owners want certain things out of our vehicles. The market is still there to sell this slightly more utilitarian off-road inspired model, just as there's market to sell the Grand Cherokee. It's why I like the option of the Recon so much, is the fact that it's not meant to take the place of the Wrangler. It's kind of the sacrifice to the greater good of the automotive market so that our niche community can have the Wrangler that we want. So while I think that the J70 is going to largely have a similar construction as we currently know it, simply because there is a huge market demand for the Wrangler as it currently is produced, there's also a finite price point to be considered. Stellantis price point of all of their models swelled to an unattainable and impractical price per product return, meaning the price they were asking for the product that they were putting into the market just simply didn't jive. And so under new leadership, they are rolling back prices like it's Walmart and trying to hone in a better approach to pricing the vehicle for the value that it delivers to the consumer. So we're already seeing prices go down by $7,000 or $10,000. They're still kind of astronomical for what we've historically known, but so is going to the grocery store or gas pump anymore. This, among other reasons I've mentioned, I think is why we're not going to see kind of a huge push of new technology shoehorned into our Wrangler platform, this J70. Instead, I think it's going to be an aesthetic overhaul, change up the grille, the windshield, the door openings, the ease of on and off while still giving you power and posh options among the accessories on the dash and the doors, but giving you that robust construction we expect out of Dana axles and low crawl ratios and the general sense of wind in your hair and freedom in your veins. I'm excited about what this generation might be because I'm seeing the current leadership realize that they had strayed pretty far off the path and are desperately making changes, negotiations, and considerations to meet the needs of the consumer market that has loyally stood by this specific product line. I'm also seeing indicators happening where the rebranding of the Wagoneer and re-release of Ram trucks, Ram options, and of course the release of the Recon, that there's certain things being put into place to lay the groundwork for us to retain the Wrangler as we know and want it to be, with the vital improvements that help attract a new market base each and every time the model changes. While yes, the Yuppie Jeep was a huge divergence from what that iconic CJ platform meant to a group of people, it still allowed our model to evolve into what we know it is today. Our history isn't always beautiful or palatable, but it is inevitably part of who we are, and I'm excited for what that will make us. So what do you guys think? What additions or options do you think you would like to see on the J70 Wrangler platform? The information that I've shared with you today is out there via the UAW negotiations, a couple Motor Trend and other automotive enthusiast articles and blogs. There's enough information to start picking up the pieces and forming them into a puzzle that sort of makes sense. We'd love to hear from you below in the comments. We read and respond to the vast majority of them. We're so thankful for people who have prioritized this specific channel as part of your infotainment, and we look forward to bringing you great Jeep and off-road related content. Make sure you like and subscribe because we want to continue to do this for you. And in the meantime, feel free to head over to sfj4x4.com and check out all that we've got going on over there, and maybe pick yourself up a sweet piece of merch in the process and help support us through the holidays. Jeep on.